So we are apparently live. Welcome everyone. Welcome to this first episode of Protocol Watch. This is a new series of podcasts we're going to be having from the IO Foundation, in which we will be analyzing standard developing organizations, giving you news about technology, looking into what's happening into those standard developing organizations, also commonly known as SDOs. We'll be exploring how they function, what's the organization, what's the kind of materials that they produce, how those affect the technology landscape, as well as how you can participate, and most importantly, how can you pass your ideas into those standards. With me today is Mariam Lee. Hi, Mariam.
Hello. Hi, John.
Introduce yourself.
My name is Mariam Lee. I am based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and I've been with the IO Foundation since 2019, and we have been observing the SDO space, and we want to bring those insights to you.
Right on. And also with us is our digital producer, Tristan.
Hi, Tristan.
Hi. He's going to be showing himself there. He may come in every now and then. I don't know if he wants to do much live audio, but he's there supporting with the episode. Episodes will not be necessarily regular because we unfortunately need to travel a lot for anything that has to do with the events of these SDOs that we're going to be analyzing and looking into one of the episodes. More or less, we will try to concentrate into one SDO per episode, or one specific topic per episode, and we'll be digging down into that particular topic a little bit as, if you will, live research on that particular issue, and see what we can figure out. We will also be mapping all of this information. We are putting together a tool to be able to do that, so that we can see the relations as well as the influences of different decisions inside those SDOs. A little bit of an intro. The type of standard developing organizations we've been thinking of are the International Telecommunications Union, or ITU, ICANN, what was the acronym for ICANN again? International, oh my gosh, I got such a...
International Corporation for Assigned Name and Numbers.
Was it that?
Yeah.
Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. You wouldn't believe that I'm actually part of it. But yes, they are very famous for having way too high amount of acronyms. Anyway, that's the organization that takes care of domains, and we'll do a whole episode just on them. It's a very, very complex ecosystem. There's also other organizations such as the W3C, which takes care of web technologies. And the one that we're going to be looking today is the Internet Engineers Task Force, also known as IETF. The structure of the episode will be, at least in the first episode for each of one of the SDOs, we'll be looking into the content of the structure of each of one of those organizations. Again, as I mentioned, how to participate, what's the governance, what's the kind of products that they issue. Products means standards or any other type of documents. And from there, we will try to paint for you a general impression as to how to participate into them. We wanted to start the first episode with IETF because one of the meetings for this organization is coming up in a few weeks, in particular from Saturday 20 to 26 July. It's going to be happening in Vancouver, Canada, and that will be IETF 120. So I am going to show my screen. Let me see, present over here. As you can imagine, the podcast is going to have a lot of small in-between transitions because we're doing this live, at least for 3 platforms. That will be YouTube, Rumble, and X. We'll be uploading the episodes later on other platforms. And so it's normal that you're going to see us doing these kind of transitions because specifically this is as we will be doing live research on this particular topic. So share screen here, there's my window, and I'm looking for this one over here. Guessing things are now loading. All right. Is the Zoom good enough, Tristan? All right. Okay. So what is this IETF about? Well, their website is definitely ietf.org. Feel free to go and have a look at it. They have undergone quite a substantial cleaning of the website. There used to be some very interestingly outdated information, and in my opinion, they've done quite an effort on updating the website, restructuring some of the sections, and making much more sense of it. As you can see on the splash, IETF is meeting soon in Vancouver, as I was mentioning. So the way this works is IETF meets 3 times a year in different places around the world, and things are discussed there that have to do with documents that they issue, which are called RFCs, requests for comment. But we'll get into that with much more detail later. So Marianne, is there any place that you would like to start?
So this is like a full-on introduction to IETF, right?
Yes, correct.
Definitely, we can start with the terminologies
Can.
and the jargons, and what is a BOF, what is a research group, what is the difference between IETF and IRTF.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay,
yeah,
so
there.
you touch a good point there. The IETF is the common name of this particular habitat of the technology ecosystem. However, there's a number of sub-organizations inside the IETF. And I guess we can find them in the about over here. Let's see, that's the administration, not really. Process supporters, where are the other ones? They have to have, okay, a structure of the IETF, correct, here. So there is 2 important substructures of the IETF that are worth mentioning right off the bat. The first one is the Internet Research Task Force.
Yep.
That one is parallel to the IETF in the sense that the IETF does generate some output, whereas the Internet Research Task Force only generates research, and it's a bit of abstract type of research. They are not necessarily generating, they can, but they are not into the imposition or the mandate of generating RFCs, whereas the IETF does require to generate some kind of output based on the structure that they have on the
Exactly.
different areas of the IETF, as well as the Internet Architecture Board, which is the IAB. I feel that we'll probably do an episode on each of one of them separately, because they do deserve a bit more investigation. We now can just brush upon them. And the IAB essentially does a bit of a coordination between different SDOs and the IETF. As the name carries, is they look at the architecture of the internet. And one thing that is important to clarify is that the IETF does not have a specific authority upon anything. They issue documents that are called RFCs, I'll repeat, requests for comments, that determine the updates or new proposals for protocols for this TCP/IP stack. However, those RFCs become standards through sheer adoption. They don't impose it to anyone, and they hope to be able to publish the best RFCs that they can come up with, the best technical specifications, and if they are good enough, then the market will be, it will be the last judge of it.
their validation of their product is through market adoption.
That's correct.
So the more people use it, the better validated it is.
That is correct. They also have, as you can see there, a number of other substructures, such as the IETF trust. The IETF trust, I don't think there's going to be much of a need for a whole episode, but we may want to have a section at some point more in detail, where they basically take care of the all the IP of the IETF. So the IETF itself doesn't have a structure, legal structure, if you will. There is a small organization, which is the LLC, that takes care of the organizing of the events and all this admin stuff.
Like the secretariat.
Correct. But in general, the IETF is a kind of a very vibrant environment composed by just the people who are participating into it. The steering group is the one that I know the least, but obviously the name tells you that they are monitoring operations from the IETF itself. And then the nominating committee is one of the most interesting in the sense that it has a certain amount of how would you call this, influence on how the IETF positions are elected. Considering that it is the committee that nominates who's going to be the IETF chair, who's going to be the IETF chair, etc., etc. And in fact, I was having a call the other day with Kalia Young. We might invite her for an episode as a guest sooner or later. She was going through a number of documents on the IETF, and she said, "I finally found the other day, after all of these weeks looking and researching, where was the NOMCOM finally described, etc., etc." So apparently there has to be an RFC that defines the NOMCOM, the nominating committee.
Okay.
But it took her some time to look, and she's been digging into the history of the IETF. I think she's doing a project on it. I don't know. She's writing a book,
Right.
But she's basically doing some research. All right. So.
You can talk about your first experience of IETF.
First experience of IETF was online, actually. So for those who may want to participate into IETF events, you can do it either in person, wherever they're doing in the world. And normally they try to rotate between continents so that all continents are eventually visited. However, you can also participate online, which is definitely the easiest way to do. And they do a lot of effort for hybrid participation. The IETF is a very, very welcoming organization. So far, my experience has been that any time that someone has requested, for instance, for what's that? It's not a free pass. It's how's the English? It's a voucher, a waiver. Correct. Thanks. For remote participation, they have never refused it. It is to be noted that because the IETF is not an organization selling anything, they don't have a direct income. They rely on sponsorships, and therefore in-person meeting participation does require a payment. It's not cheap. It's one of the main problems, specifically for NGOs. Corporations don't really care because they have money for these kind of things. Not all of them, of course, but the big ones do. And civil society in general does struggle to be able to participate in person because not everyone can hand out $800 or $1,200 depending on which stage of the booking you undertake.
Yeah, the fees can be quite high, so high that it might, cause some barriers to entry. But generally, the remote participation is quite accessible.
It's quite good, and the platform that they use, Meeteco, is quite
quite
well
remarkable,
developed for purpose.
Yeah.
All right, so let's look a little bit into
Working groups.
I want to go to the IETF areas.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, we can start with the areas first.
Yes. So Actually, no. We should probably. So I'm thinking that because this is the first episode, we're pretty much learning on the go what is the best way to structure our episodes.
Okay.
But eventually, would like to have a bit of more of a script in
Yeah.
terms of what are the questions that we need to ask and in which
Mm.
order to
Yeah.
make it more sense.
Sure.
Um, I think that at the moment we should look into what are the outputs of the IETF, because everything revolves around those outputs. In this
Okay.
case, the RFCs.
Okay.
And so,
Yeah.
if we look into where can we find participate drafts, internet drafts,
Process. RFC.
process. There you go, about RFCs. Okay,
Mhm.
so I'm looking at the website, and they have done quite a very good update on it. Positively surprised. That's cool. I'm liking this. Okay. So let's go first to RFCs and see what it is about. So as I was mentioning, RFCs are requests for comments. And by the way, one element that I have not mentioned about this podcast is that there's a lot of stuff that we will be discovering ourselves as we go and as we dig. That's this part of the idea of the podcast itself. So we know a few things about these SDOs because we've been interacting with them for quite some time. That does not mean by any means that we know everything about them. And so we take this opportunity to discover it for you, but also for ourselves.
Mhm.
In this case, so let's go for RFCs. So everything that the IETF publishes in terms of technical documentation is in the format of what's called a document called RFCs, requests for comments. This has a whole history that maybe one day we want to dig in just for the sake of it. And as they indicate here, they have a sequence. They are numbered, started with the RFC 1, which was published in 1969. That's really cool. And the RFC series predates the IETF. That makes me wonder that we should have a look at what's the story between the RFCs if it predates the IETF. It seems to have been a bit of a situation with the ITU that existed before it was incorporated under the UN.
Right.
So as they say, there's more than 9,000 RFCs at the moment. And one of the things about RFCs is that you don't update them. Once they are published, they remain as they are. And if you want to issue a new revision, it will be a new RFC.
Okay.
So there's no version 1, version 3, version whatever. It's always version 1 and it remains there. So as you can see here, RFCs have two subseries, STDs and BCPs. What did that stand that for? Yeah. Enable echo cancellation to see? Sure. Let me see. Audio echo cancellation is on. Is better? Does it work better for you? Okay. All right. So what do we have here?
Basically, what we have here is that if something happens to the internet and we have to rebuild it from scratch, you go to the IETF documents to see how to do that.
Yeah, that would be a correct
Okay.
estimation.
A
Yeah.
living archive that keeps getting updated every time they meet, every 3 months.
Well, the work is done mostly on mailing lists for each of
Yeah.
one of the working groups, and then when they meet, they essentially try to agree on the points of commonality for all the things that they disagree when they are online.
Exactly.
So one of the things that was missing here when we got first involved with IETF was state machine for a life cycle for an RFC. I did speak with some of the LLC staff, and there has to be something somewhere, but they were also thinking about it. It was a little bit unclear to me what was going to be the status of that. I wouldn't mind to build one, even if it's just a very simple diagram, because you can see there is different status. So internet standard, proposed standard, informational, experimental, or historic, and the whole development process of the of an RFC document does follow a certain amount of stages. To give you an idea, um, someone said once to me that it takes longer to get an RFC published than to get your PhD done.
Right.
So that gives you a bit of an idea on how long this can take. Typically involves a lot of people, a lot of research, a lot of finding common ground as to different ideas as to how certain things should be implemented and so forth. It's not straightforward. And there's very, very smart people participating in IETF. So the series, they also claim that there's two sub-series, STDs and BCPs. I can't remember what they stand for. So what's an STD RFC? Let's see.
Mm.
STD notes.
But RFCs are really like one of the ultimate goals that you have in participating in IETF. If you have an RFC in, you're practically at the level of
So, go ahead. Go ahead.
nothing. Just talking about like the general culture at IETF, the appreciation for good work that's there.
Oh, there's a lot of
Yeah,
work being
a
in that.
lot of work is being done at IETF.
So you can imagine that RFCs include everything that has to do with the IETF and the IRTF in IAB as well, even the NOMCOM. So all the subdivisions inside the IETF, and that includes from internal governance to actual technical documents to internet standards and so forth. So everything is published through an RFC.
Yeah.
And so some of the RFCs are promoted to official Internet Protocol standards, as you can see here. There is an organization called the IRC Editor, which is where you will go and submit your RFCs and where you're going to be maintaining the different versions, etc., etc. That deserves a whole episode on its own. I got very little idea as to how the interface functions, so I'll be very interested to have an eye on that. And you can see here, for instance, that there is standard 3, 5. There's this sequence numbering here that has to do with requirements for internet host communication layers. There's some extra infos here. How is this information structured? Let's see. Current list of internet standards, draft standards. Maturity level was retired by RFC 6410. Any protocol or service that is currently at the abandoned draft standard maturity level will retain that classification absent explicit actions. I got no idea what they mean by that. Proposed standards. Okay. Internet protocol. That's John Postel, one of the OGs of the internet. Most of the people here are OGs because those are RFCs from pretty much the very beginning of time for the internet. John Clensin, another OG. Mocha Petris, never heard about this guy. Okay. All right, so trying to figure out what was this STD thing. So STDs are a sub-series of nodes within the RFC series that are the internet standards. Okay. The intent is to identify clearly for the internet community those RFCs which document internet standards. All right. So apparently, those who have attained um, massive adoption are at some point labeled as standards. And the other ones, the BCPs, let's see, BCP, best current practice. Okay. So there's another page here for BCP index.
Like best practices or the current practice.
Yeah, it's a bit, it's unclear to me what all of this means at a practical level. Following the BCP number, the title of the author, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So, okay, let's ask the difference. What is the difference between RFC STD and BCP? Well, someone must have asked already because it's suggested. Right, we already that in that one. What's the difference? Best current practice, request for comments. Let's see if the Wikipedia can tell us something a bit better explained. So a request for comment is a publication in a series from the principal technical development and standard setting bodies for the internet, most prominently the Internet Engineering Task Force, also known as IETF. An RFC is authored by individuals or groups of engineers and computer scientists in the form of a memorandum describing methods, behaviors, research, or innovation applicable to the working of the internet and internet-connected systems. It is submitted either for peer review or to convey new concepts, information, or occasionally engineering humor. We've seen some of those. Yep. One of the cool RFCs for me is the one that makes the proper definition for terms such as must, may, should, should not, must not, and may not. That clarifies a lot for people. The IETF adopts some of the proposals published as RFCs, as internet standards. Okay. However, many RFCs are informational or experimental in nature and are not standards. Sure. The RFC system was invented by Steve Crooker. Interesting. I would like to know more about this guy. In 1969, to help record unofficial notes on the development of ARPANET. Okay, so again, this comes back from the Department of Defense of the United States. RFCs have since become official documents of Internet specifications, communications protocols, procedures, and events. According to Crocker, the documents shape the Internet's inner working and have played a significant role in its success. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, I should stop reading all of this. No, I was trying to look if there was anything more interesting. So on the distinctions, standards track, so status here, substreams, production and versioning. Okay. So we probably want to come back later to this so that we don't get too laser focused on the RFC structure. But as you can see right now, there's plenty of information to be understood about the subseries, the streams, and so forth. Okay, so let's go back 1 second to the IETF, and I would suggest to go to the different. I think the directorates. No, what was the? Let's see. Is where we see the different areas.
Yeah.
Oh, here. Areas is what I wanted. So the IETF on itself, the work that is done, it's structure across different areas, and each of one of those areas comprises one area of study or research. The areas that are at the moment active is applications and real-time area, general area, internet area, operations and management, routing, security, web and internet transport. And you can see that each of one of them has their own small abbreviation. Each of one of the areas has an area director, if I'm not wrong. Let's see, correct.
Yep, that's right.
And the ISG is the steering group is the one that can define how many areas are active at any given time, who would be the area directors, and so forth. Well, they changed the number. I think that I understand that NomCom is the one who gets to decide who's the. Let's see. They explain this here in many ways. Decision to make that when changing the structure, as you can decide which members. The ISG can only add new members through the nomination committee process. Okay, so let's have a look at how an area looks like. So let's go for art, application in real time. Okay, so this is taking us to a very interesting element of the IETF, which is the data tracker. The data tracker is the IETF's main
tool.
Yeah, it's their main platform for storing everything.
Literally everything.
Literally everything. You could consider it sort of a CRM in steroids, in a way, because it's basically a big database with all the contacts and all the information and
Huge.
all the others. It's quite cool. They've done a lot of very good work on having pretty much. I wouldn't say all the information from the IETF inside, because there's been conversations about it that there's plenty of old stuff that is not there. It's not always properly indexed for a number of reasons. None of them, to my awareness, intentional from the IETF itself. They typically these legacy issues or people who change their emails, and so it's difficult to figure out if they've been participating here and there. But in general, the platform is quite impressive. They give you good amount of statistics on participation on events, on everything that has to do with RFCs. In this case, as well with this area. So if we look at this website, we can see here what are the subgroups inside this area, and each of one of these subgroups or working groups is looking into one specific technology, and they issue their own RFCs. So for instance, inside art, you have things such as automatic SIP trunking and peering. I have no idea what it is. Doesn't matter. Don't get stressed about not being able to understand everything. Not a single person is able to understand every single element of every single area of technology. That would be a fallacy. What's important here is to understand what the IETF does and how it does it. I can see other things such as revision of core email specifications. And if we, let's say, go to revision of core email specifications, they're probably going to have some explanation as to what do they do. So this would be email core. That's their own working group abbreviation. You can see here an explanation on the about as to what is it that they do, what are the personnel that is involved, who's the chair. You can always reach out to them, by the way. Typically, every single working group must have a charter. The charter will indicate what is specifically the objective of the working group, what is supposed to be.
Focus area is.
Yeah.
It's basically the mandate document of the group.
Yeah, that's correct. And there's also some milestones here that you can see. So you can see what's the history of that particular working group, the meetings in which there's been activity. So for instance, you can see that for IETF 120, which is the upcoming one, there is going to be a meeting, and they only give the one for the last 4 years. Early meeting, C2 proceedings. Okay, I would like to have a look at the proceedings later. Okay, I guess they also have pictures about, there you go, the chairs, I guess. And this would be the archive for the mailing list, which is where pretty much all conversation and exchange inside the working group is happening. This is where they decide all the discussions on proposals or potential points of friction between different members as to what is the IRC that they are working on functioning. Okay, let's go down. Is there anything here that you would like to have a look at, Mariam, in particular?
RFCs have an expiry date, typically 6 months. Although when they expire or something like that, it's not like they stop being in use or anything. It's just that they just go into archive.
So I think that there's precisely this state machine that I was mentioning, this life cycle of RFCs
Yeah.
that is documented in a couple of RFCs that I can remember. Again, it's self-referential, but it is what it is. I think one day we should do a section just to review what's the life cycle, because like you said, so if memory serves, a draft that has not been updated for a period of time, you mentioned it could be 6 months, then it goes into non-active or something like along those lines. I don't know the whole shebang, and it would be good to have a look at it.
Yeah.
Okay.
When I was in attendance of IETF 119,
Mm-hmm.
there was actually a presentation on how many out of all the submissions for RFCs, how many actually succeed.
Do you remember the number?
I don't remember the numbers, but it seems to be quite a joke that it's not as many as we would hope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So there's more presented than the ones who go through.
of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that doesn't surprise me much.
Oh, and
It's a lot of effort.
it is. Yeah.
Um, so you participated in 119. Where did that take place?
That was in Brisbane.
Brisbane,
Yeah.
Australia. And I was in Prague, 118.
Mm.
That was last year, correct. And aside from that, we've been, um, Yokohama 116 and so forth. I think Yokohama 116 was the first one that we started participating actively.
Mm.
Until then, we just saw things from the outside.
Yeah.
Um, and I'll personally be in ITF 120. Looking forward to that. All right, so we can see that there's this distinction a bit about the groups. I would like to have let me have a look at something. So there are documents here for each of one of the areas. Okay, I'm gonna have to go all the way down to the area. As you can see here, the area has how many? It does not say, does not give you a summarized number. It is quite an amount of them.
Yeah, there's quite
Um,
a lot.
there's, I would say that there's a bit of flavor for every preference. If we go back to the general areas, what would be gen area, for instance?
Dispatch.
Dispatch,
Yeah.
I think dispatch was
So they started to implement this thing called dispatch, where this happens during the first day of IETF.
yeah.
So whatever topics that do not yet have a group
Mm-hmm.
will be determined where the group is at dispatch, and
Yep.
then any groups that feel like that particular group is in the wrong group currently and needs to be dispatched elsewhere, that is
Yeah.
also decided during the general dispatch.
Right.
So dispatch is literally like this first 4 hours of IETF that decides um, undefined groups to find their groups. Because sometimes all they have is a problem. They don't really know the solution yet. So
Mhm.
if the problem is better seated somewhere else than where it is currently now, that's when they ask the question, should we move this? Should we
Okay.
dispatch?
So basically, we could actually look into that. So
And those
IETF.
sessions are the ones where most of the groups are in attendance. So everyone's sort of have the opportunity to see what's been going on all around.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, everybody's just focused on their own working groups, and they don't really have any idea what other people are working on.
Right. I have this habit to keep touching the screen because my desktop is typically touchscreen. Um, if we have a look at the agenda for IETF 120,
Yep.
which tada is also maintained through the data tracker,
Yep.
um, we should be able to see what Mariam is mentioning on dispatch
Yep. Typically on the first day, not during the hackathon, the first day of ITF
on the Monday, right?
on the Monday.
Yeah. So meetings are structured into sort of two different main activities, if you will. The meetings go from Monday to Friday, and the weekend before there is this hackathon taking place in which people just go and try to implement the stuff that has been exposed and worked on in the IETF. So as you can see here, Saturday 20th and Sunday 21st, the hackathon is taking place and the
Mm-hmm.
code sprint. Um, and another thing that is very interesting that happens on that weekend is what's called hot RFC. Those are lightning talks.
Mm-hmm.
We had
Wow.
two of them in the past, one in Yokohama, another one in Prague,
Mm.
and we're going to be proposing another one um, in Vancouver. Um, Hot RFCs are basically a place where people just throw ideas.
Mm-hmm.
This is something I would like to discuss, and I'm trying to find others who may want to discuss with me. Or this is an idea that I have. Give me feedback. What do you think about it? Or, you know, it's the place where you will be throwing and discussing about stuff that otherwise wouldn't have any space in IETF. For those who participate in person for the first time, there's also some activities on the first on the weekend. But this is the weekend before the actual meeting. Meeting starts on Monday.
Yeah.
And dispatch is going to be here, is all dispatch, right?
Yeah. All
So
this.
that's where I was getting confused. Go ahead.
Yep. That's right.
Yeah, so that's where I was going confused because the art has its own dispatch here. If you
Right.
look in itself. And what it says here is that dispatch working group is chartered to consider proposals for new work in art. So I understand is that each of one of the areas may have its own dispatch. We
Yeah.
can double check this.
That's right. So from what I understood is that usually, typically, what they've done is that the dispatch is only within the areas. So,
What I
but
see from the calendar,
last ITF meeting, they kind
yeah,
of like all dispatch because then they get an idea what other people are working on.
correct. So all dispatch seems to be pertaining to Gen.
Yeah,
So
Jen.
um, as you can see in the screen, you get the name of the session.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see here what's the on the left side, what is the acronym for that particular working group
Yep.
and which area it belongs. And so the IETF wide dispatch session,
Yeah, that'll be
which interestingly is a birds of a feather, huh?
yeah.
I thought it was going to be something different. Okay, um, belongs to all dispatch, which is
Which
part
is
of Gen.
yeah. That's right.
And if we go to about, this one has no charter yet. Interesting. Um,
Maybe because it doesn't need one. It's just
oh,
basically
wait,
telling
wait,
people where
wait,
to
wait,
go.
wait. Birds of a feather.
Buffs can happen within all dispatch as well.
Am I wrong to think that this is because it's the first time they're doing it this way? So BOF
Yeah,
typically, for all I know, are the process before a new topic gets assigned.
yeah, that's true.
So you basically
Mm.
need to generate a quorum of
Quorum.
enough people who are interested.
That's
And
right.
so this seems to be the BOF for an ITFY dispatch session.
Mm-hmm.
So they would be before, let's see, for instance, internet area. They probably have their own dispatch. Let's have a look at it.
Hmm.
No, it doesn't. Okay, so art did have, but um, not internet. Okay. How about ops? I don't see a dispatch here neither. So there has to be a history here by which they probably figured it out that there wasn't a straightforward way or a structured way to move things around, and they probably came up with this idea of having the IETF dispatch. I remember this was discussed in
It was done. It was done at the last IETF, so I think they're gonna keep the format. They
right.
like, yeah.
Okay. 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 That would make a lot of sense.
Mm.
All right. So operations and management area. Again, this doesn't have any dispatch. I'm just gonna see what happens is if I do this. See what does data tracker tell me about dispatch. Well, not exactly what I was looking for. Drafts. There's so much information to parse through. It's unbelievable. Draft on dispatch POC instance usage. Nah, that
I'm
doesn't look.
actually looking at RFCs that contain the word privacy,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the privacy pass architecture, the privacy pass HTTP authentication scheme, privacy pass issuance protocols. They literally tell you how to build and manage and implement the privacy pass. That's cool.
How many of them?
There's a lot. It doesn't say the number, but 45 hits.
45. Routing. Oh, it's got a small bug here with
And some working groups have not been meeting for years. I mean, they have some working groups are not active. Yeah.
yeah. So the one thing that would be good is probably find some statistics inside data tracker. There has to be some participation statistics somewhere, and have a look at which ones have been more or less active. This one also does not seem to have any dispatch. Okay, we're good. So
Cool.
recapping, each of one of these areas have their own working groups, and there's a method that
Mm.
seems to be in the undergoing changes and a bit of an optimization system in order to be able to find in which working group your idea should be investigated, researched, and generate the corresponding RSC. Um, and I would recommend to anyone who is interested on having a look at the IETF, definitely to attend the white dispatch session. That seems to be a very interesting one to do. By all means, it's in my agenda already.
Okay.
What else? Hmm? Sure, you are. Just announce that you're breaking. You're muted.
So I'm gonna step out for 5 minutes to drink some water. I'll be
Sure,
back.
no problem. Okay. So what else we can have a look at? As technologies that they're looking into, working group keywords, security and privacy. What are the keywords that they want to use for working groups? Let's see. What's DMARC doing there? DMARC has to do with email management. And acronym DMARC. This one belongs to which area? Art, application, and real time. Yeah. That's probably an errata. To extend validation to the RFC 5322 form field, I guess. That dot there makes no sense. Okay. So processes. Let's review what's a birds of a feather. I want to review what that is. Birds of a feather sessions are initial discussions about a particular topic of interest to the IETF community. BOFs are usually held at IETF meetings, and requests to hold a BOF must be made significantly in advance into the meeting. Sure. Submission deadline, yada, yada, yada. That's done by the Internet Engineering Steering Group. So, though some BOFs lead to forming a working group, BOFs may be used to gather a sense of the IETF community about a topic without intending to form a working group. Okay, yeah. BOFs are not required, or not a required step in forming working groups. Okay, this is interesting. I thought they were. If an area director believes that a proposal for a new working group is compelling, well thought of, and well organized, the area director can initiate the process of chartering a working group without approving of a BOF. Okay. So the area directors do have the final decision on this, and they can only use they can use BOFs only if ever necessary, whether they consider it. Okay. BOFs meetings have a very different tone than do working group meetings. The purpose of a BOF is to make sure that a good charter with good milestones can be created, that there are enough people willing to do the work needed in order to create standards, and that any standards would get adoption. So it's basically a test on the concepts. Often a self-selected group of key people will get together after the BOF to refine the draft chart. Fine. Generally, only 2 BOF meetings are allowed for the same topic. That's interesting. So if you're not able to gather enough interest in those 2 BOFs, probably your proposal doesn't go anywhere. Submitting a BOF proposal. So there's also guidance here about birds of a feather. Yada, yada, yada. Provides guidelines on how to have a side meeting. Okay. And again, as you can imagine, everything that has to do with things happening in IETF, they are all declared in RFCs. And I believe we had here the RFC editor. Let's have a quick look at this. Let's just go to the main website. So the RFC editor always had very simple website, sponsored by the Internet Society. That's another organization we may want to have an episode on. We've been working with them in the past. For authors, the series, document retrieval, errata, list of recent RFCs. Let's see, independent submissions.
I'm back.
Welcome back.
Where are we at? Oh, RFC series.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
So I'm trying to see if there's more information. So you can just browse. Let's see so the status are all of these over here. Let's go for experimental, for instance. 9,526. Wow. So all of these are experimental. Oh, by the way, anytime that that we look into, let's say here, let's say secure asset. If you look into one specific working group, you should be able to see if they have issued any specific RFC. So in this case, they have a draft. There we go. And if I want to have a look at the content, it will also give you this timeline as to what has been the development of that particular document. And you can look at it in different formats. It's quite complete. It's quite something. And you can just scroll down and review it. I do not know when is it that an RFC gets its number, possibly after one of these drafts passes the last evaluation phase. I see that there is also comments from the ISG, which is quite cool over there. ML expansions, I don't know what that is. ML aliases. Are these email groups? Do you know what an email expansion is, Tristan? Looks like a group to me, yeah. Okay. So if any of the working groups has documents, or they have been working on a specific document, you can also find it linked in their page, as I was.
Actually, I
just
need to report a mistake. It's not that RFCs has an expiry date. It's the internet drafts.
the drafts,
Yeah,
right?
the drafts have an expiry, which makes sense because
That makes more sense. Yes.
yeah, RFCs are pretty much final.
Yeah. So once they get the number, they are
It
published
becomes
for. Yeah,
reference.
that's
Yeah.
correct. Yeah. You see that there's this confusion that internet drafts may be RFCs, when in reality RFCs are the last stage, final published and approved
Yeah.
stage of an internet draft.
Yep. Mm.
Okay, so back to, so we were just looking at the birds of feather. So for one specific topic, there can only be two buffs.
Mm.
The idea is that if you haven't been able to garner enough interest after the second buff,
Yeah.
probably you will not later on. I thought buffs were a mandatory step to be able to form a working group.
No.
Apparently it isn't.
No, it's just to find your people.
Yes, and the area director may decide whether it is necessary or not.
That's right.
Okay, what else do we have over here? Any place where you like to go, Mariam?
You can go to IPv6 ops.
IPv6
Yeah.
RFCs that have to do with IPv6. Any reason why you want to go there?
No reason. Just
Okay.
wanted to see it like a difference between like a policy base, like a policy rich document and a technical base document.
These are probably going to be, let me see, status. All of these are experimental.
Mm.
If I want to go to the official ones, I will have to go to change the status.
And usually when I go through topics like this, I actually want to see what exactly are people discussing about the technology.
Mm-hmm.
There might be new ideas that have come up that are being discussed there. But the only thing is you need the vocabulary.
Oh yeah.
You need the technical vocab and the technical jargons to navigate your way through the discussions.
So the standards track, let's see for what we have between internet standard and experimental. And we're just going to search that. So we got ICPM, ICMPv6. Let's see if I can find. Interesting. I would have expected that there is a specification for IPv6 that is part of the internet standard status. Huh? I do not believe it's going to be as proposed standard. Oh, it is. Okay.
What?
That's interesting. The
Okay.
actual IPv6 is on the proposed standard status. It's a proposed standard. Obsoleted by.
It's really small letters. How do you guys see? Oh, okay, nice. Wow,
It's
December
also
98.
obsoleted by 8200. July 2017. Yeah, but this is what I'm not understanding. So on the search here,
Yeah.
I'm basically selecting um, status experimental, and in the standards track, the proposed standard,
Okay.
and that's where it's finding the IPv6 specification.
Okay.
Even if it's obsoleted by 2460,
Mm-hmm.
2460, 2460, 2460 is not here. 2460 should be this one. Sorry. And this was draft standard. Okay. This one is considered an internet standard. July 2017. If I'm going here to the internet standard, this is the search that I tried before. And if I search, is there paginations somewhere that I'm missing? Because it's not going all the way to 38 results, so 24 all. Okay. So there is a pagination. Now, yes. Okay. These make sense. Okay. Couldn't see it before. All right. But strange because they should be a next arrow somewhere instead of an all link. All right. So this one would be the current Internet Standard for IPv6 specification, July 2017. Okay, and let's say that we want to watch it. As what was it? HTML. No, this is not the one that I want. There's a format that is quite interesting. This one doesn't. No, it must be because it's from the RFC editor. There's a much more rich way to see the documents, possibly from the data tracker itself. Okay, anyway. What would you like to have a look at in here, Mariam?
We just wanted to see that. I just wanted to see content. Just wanted to see the content between technical paper and policy paper, research paper. The differences, the specific differences between them.
Mm-hmm. Comparison is going to take quite a long time. It's
It
quite
doesn't have to be now.
Hmm?
Yeah, we can just take a look at the other things.
Yeah. So let's give me an RFC that you think would be less technical.
Oh, okay. And I mean, I wouldn't have one in mind right now.
This one, for instance, the introduction to the STD nodes.
Okay.
If you look at the content of it, the document is very prose based. Is how you say in English, prose.
Okay.
How do you call it when you do an exam and you don't have options as answers? You need to write essay. Essay is how you say it in English. Yeah, it's very essay-ish.
Okay.
Whereas the technical document will get into a lot of details in terms of the definition of the terminology. In this case, for instance, the header format for the AP packet.
Right. Okay.
Let me see. Version, traffic class, flow label, payload length. Okay. Next header and hop limit, source address, destination address. Right. All right. So RFCs indicate all of this. We definitely need to look a little bit better into what's the life cycle for RFCs. I want to have a very quick look at to who was this Stephen Crocker. He's the guy who came up with request for comments.
Yeah. He was one of the fathers of the internet, no?
Mm-hmm.
He was at ICANN 80.
He was an icon guy.
Yeah, he was a
Okay.
ICANN for a long time.
He's still alive, right?
Yes, he's still alive. He was
79. Yeah.
just at ICANN 80. He was in Rwanda.
Okay.
Saw him there, yeah.
I may have crossed paths, but I can't. His face does not necessarily ring a bell.
John, if you want to show interesting RFC, it's 2119. Keywords that you mentioned.
Coming. Yep.
2119.
2119.
2119.
That's 2919. 21.
Oh, sorry.
Maybe that's just a more understandable RFC for YouTube.
Yeah, I always like this one. So a lot of times you're trying to define something from a technical perspective, and you try to move it from a qualitative concept of shall, should, to a quantitative state for technical definition. And it's not always clear what you mean by that. And the IETF just took care of this by basically issuing this RFC where they have a specific definition
Yeah.
for each of one of them. So must, they say very clearly that this word or the terms required or shall mean that the definition is an absolute requirement of the specification.
Okay.
Must not. This phrase or the phrase shall not mean that the definition is an absolute prohibition of the specification. So this gives a much clearer guidance as to what to expect. It's a very cool RFC. To me, is one of the coolest. Guidance on the use of these imperatives, security considerations, acknowledgement. And normally there is this one doesn't. Typically there is, if you checked the previous one, let me see, there isn't, there's no index in this one. Acknowledgement, security considerations. So as you can see, for instance, security consideration is repeated as we saw on the previous one.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, or I believe as a habit, there is also this IANA considerations segment. And that's because some of the technical documents may have impact on having to interface with the IANA, which is a sub-organization that we will be looking into once we explore ICANN,
Mm-hmm.
the one that takes care of domains. However, beyond taking care of domains, which is what most people know about, it also takes care of all the IP ranges, as well as the definitions of all the protocol ports, which is pretty much what IANA takes care of. Takes care of a bit more than that, but the easiest way to define what IANA does is a big registry of numbers. So that everyone can be on the same page. So if you want to register a new protocol and you want it to have a port with a standard number, say the people who invented HTTP decided that they wanted to make it a standard protocol, they had to submit a request to IANA, and IANA was the one who assigned the number 80 for the port. I'll be interested on knowing, because I know Berners-Lee was involved with HTML, but was he? Do you know, Tristan, if Sir Tim was involved with HTTP itself?
No, I think that's a different protocol. But that's the protocol. That's not the
Yeah.
thing it's doing.
Yeah, I just don't know if he was also involved on that or only HTML. HTML for sure. It's quite simple to have a look at it. Sir Tim Berners-Lee. And we're going to have his Wikipedia somewhere. Come on, load, please. And then, oh, he actually implemented HTTP. He proposed information.
I don't think he implemented GTP.
I see. Let me read this. Yeah. So who came up with HTTP itself? Actually, we should go to the. Did I close? I probably closed it. RFC editor. Epa. Hypertext protocol. Yeah, Berners-Lee was there. May 96. That's informational, but let's say we can try to find the, well, any, no, let's go for standards one. There's got to be an internet standard about this one. 1.1, which definitely is going to be obsoleting previous ones. So the question would be, where is the original?
It says it also lists SCCs.
Yeah. Which in turn obsoletes this two here. Now there's got to be a better way to author. See if we can find him directly. There you go. Yeah, so he definitely had a hand on HTTP 1.0. He also seems to have participated in 1.1. Right. And he definitely did something on HTML as well, because he was behind the setting up of W3C. Yeah, correct. HTML markup language, URL system, and HTTP. So he also came up with
What's the measure of HTTP?
URLs included. Okay, so
Building protocols with HTTP. Nottingham.
so this oh, he's part of the Ford Foundation. Really? 2011. So I know he was behind ODI, that's for sure. He's created a lot of organizations, including Solid, which is also developing some technology for, you can call it data protection. It's a bit different than that, but that would work. Anyway, one thing that I didn't mention at the beginning of the episode is part of the philosophy that is going to be animating these episodes is that the only stupid question is the one that you don't ask. No one is born knowing. We may have been in the space for a long time, and all of us know who's Sir Tim Berners-Lee. We don't necessarily know everything that he has done, and the fact that you don't know that he was involved in HTTP does not make you less of a um,
Engineer.
engineer. The curiosity on trying to figure out where the information is and not stopping yourself from finding it is pretty much more the attitude that you want to have, rather than having the specific information every single time at the tip of your tongue. So for those of you who might be a little bit overwhelmed about so much information, please don't care. Just go and do your work, do the effort, and you will figure it out. It's not a problem. There's plenty of tools out there for you to figure out what is what. Okay, let's go back to IETF itself. Time check. We've been up for how long? An hour 18?
1 hour
Yeah.
plus, yeah.
Let's do a bit more.
We stop at 5
At 5, what time is it right now? So half an hour from now?
or 35 minutes.
You really want to make very short episodes, my dear. Why? Do consider that I'm aiming at 4 hours long episodes.
Oh, okay.
So
Now
yeah,
for the first one.
for being, the first one should be 8, so we start trimming.
Right.
No, so for these first episodes for us, I'm basically taking 2024, the 10 to 11 episodes that I'm expecting that we will have as test ground for us to get better at all of this. If you look at the at how the studio, quote unquote studio, that we have right now, it's kind of a mess. It's been difficult for us to find a place to set up. And we are going to be improving the decoration. We're going to be improving all of these cables that you can see right there. It looks cool in a way, but it's a bit of a mess to be able to work properly, and it hurts my eyes. I don't know about you guys. Um,
The amount of hours spent into this setup, it's insane. Yeah, I was actually quite surprised.
yes, well, we wanted to take it seriously from the very beginning. That
Mhm.
doesn't make us pro automatically. However, there's interest from the organization to do this as seriously as possible.
Yep.
So yeah, we'll be playing around and toying with ways to conduct. So right now, for instance, we just jumped into the episode without a specific script,
Mm.
and we will evaluate whether that was the right approach or not. For certain things, it will be. For instance, if we sit down and we have a look at new recent proposed regulation or whatever the GDC, the Global Digital Compact, that's another story on its own. If they issue any document that we need to review, then of course that's going to be ad hoc because we'll be reading the document and discovering the document as we go.
Yeah.
Maybe for more specific things such as, or more structured things such as the IETF or any other SDO, maybe we need to have a script with very specific questions and answer them in a specific order, and we can discover what would be the proper scripting for that. We also don't want to make it very rigid from a script perspective. It's not as if we are just delivering a presentation, because otherwise we'll just shoot the presentation on a stage,
Mm.
and that would be, you post the video, and there you go. We would hope for it to be a little bit more dynamic, and eventually, if and when we gain more audience, we would like to hear your comments and your real-time questions, and eventually also entice you to also participate in your own research real time as we go through. um, in terms of let's have a look at the non-com. I'm curious about the nominating committee. Oh, the liaisons. Have they? I thought the liaisons were through the IAB. So, nominating committee, short for everybody's friends, the NOMCOM. You will also find this concept in other places, namely the ICANN, and probably in other ones as well. It exists to review open positions on all of these subgroups. So the IAB, the Internet Architecture Board, the ISG, the Internet Engineering Steering Group, the IETF Trust, which is the one that I was mentioning, has the responsibility to handle all the AP from the IETF. And the LLC, which is the small company that they use in order to handle everything that has to do with events, basically, and candidates for each of one of them, so chairs and so forth. So there's interesting. So here's the Internet Society. Okay, the NOMCOM chair is appointed by the Internet Society president. So there is a direct appointment here. Okay, so this is going to be a good example as to where do we want to, which direction Protocol Watch wants to go through. So Protocol Watch, as a project from the IO Foundation, is specifically trying to keep an eye on SDOs and on the topics that they are developing, what are the new proposals, and also what kind of authoritarian moves may be happening or germinating in those SDOs. In order to do that, one of the things that we wanted to do is in order to achieve that, one of the things that we wanted to do was to start mapping out each of one of the SDOs and the interactions between them, in a bit as in what you would think about follow the money. Who is interacting with who is issuing these particular RFCs, which companies might be participating the most in SDOs, what kind of research has been published in academia, for instance, that might be opening the doors for certain conversations in, I don't know, ITU or whatever. But also to understand what are the dynamics between them. And so, for instance, it makes a lot of sense to trace a connection, direct connection between the IETF and the Internet Society if turns out that the NOMCOM, which is the organism in charge of electing the chairs for each of one of the subgroups inside the IETF.
Mhm.
If it's directly appointed by the Internet Society,
Right.
that makes the Internet Society have a lot of control
Yeah.
over the IETF itself.
A lot of power.
Yep. Although I'm so allergic to the word power that I actively try to avoid using it. You'll see me tripping myself,
Right.
avoiding the word. Okay, so ensures that the NOMCOM completes its duties. Yeah, does not vote. That's interesting. So it is appointed, but it does not vote on the candidates. That's cool. That's a good separation. And serves as an advisor. All right. So it's basically an overseer of the nomcom. Okay. There's still some control there to be had, because if it the opinion as to whether the duties are accomplished or not is still going to be under the purview of the nomcom chair. So there's still some control that can be exercised upon the rest of the nomcom. Um, Okay, AB, ASG, IETF, and IETF-LC, they all provide a liaison to serve on the NOMCOM. An ISOC Board of Trustees may also choose to provide a liaison. I would like to know exactly what is the responsibility of those liaisons. There's 10 voting members and are selected through a complex random process detailed in, you guessed, another RFC. You know,
Mm.
Tristan, this what's the English for this? There's the name for it. The bottom boxes for podcasters. The it's got a name. It's escaping me right now. The control. What's the name? El Gato and all of these guys they have. Okay.
Team six something. Seven. What's this thing? Stream deck.
Stream decks. Yeah, correct. Um, a lot of podcasters have pre-recorded sound bites.
Mm.
I feel like recording one, claiming RFC, RFC, RFC every time we come up with one. It's funny. Publicly verifiable nominations committee random selection. Okay, are they using random numbers from constellations? Okay, so there's talk about here sources of randomness. This is exactly what I was thinking of. Source of randomness. Winning lottery numbers for specified random, particularly for government randomness. So I would like to know where is the entropy generated for the randomness. Funny. This is an RFC that is probably very worth reading. Anyway, so I want to see where the candidates for 10 voting members, NOMCOM are selected through a complex random process, blah, 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 in order to serve the NOMCOM and individually satisfy one of the conditions specified in here. Another RFC. I want that recording. RFC, RFC, RFC. Must have attended at least 3 out of the last 5 IETF meetings, in person or online. Okay. Must have been a working group chair or secretary the last 3 years. Must have been listed as an author or editor. And must satisfy only one of the conditions. Okay, so that basically means that Mariam, you and myself could be elected for the NOMCOM because we
Really?
have attended 3 out of the last 5 IDF meetings.
Right. Mm.
Uh,
That you must have been a working group chair or
no,
secretary.
or it's an or.
Oh, or
Yeah,
right.
I'm surprised, but it does say or.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then the conditions are in this other RFC. And I would like to see who have been the ITF NOMCOM pages 2024. Do we have the list of the people who are currently? Okay, so there's liaisons there, advisory, non-voting members. Where are the voting members? sets of positions to be filled. Wes is always everywhere. Wes Hardaker is everywhere. IETF 8 positions.
These, I mean,
No.
these are the things that you look out for when you want to have a more active role in IETF, because the chair, like becoming the chair and maintaining the membership and things like that, is not definitely not an easy task.
Oh, by all means. By all
Yeah,
means.
it's actually quite challenging. I mean, some chairs really do it well. I've seen them, but I've seen some chairs really struggle as well.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm only. I would like to see announcements for this non-com are available here. You need to enter in the. We. I do have my account, but it's not linked right now to this computer, so I'll have to look at that later. Okay, so ITF. All right, so the non-com does have a structure that we should be investigating a little bit further.
For what?
Um,
To nominate people?
no, to see exactly who has been a non-com before, what has
Oh,
been their processes, and so forth. I'm interested on the non-com because it does bear a lot of responsibility on who
yeah,
is
whoever
who.
elected or whoever's appointed is, yeah, it's not a free vacation, I can tell you that.
Yeah. So, for instance, look at this last paragraph. This is the kind of thing that is important to know. So, once the non-com has recommended candidates for the open positions, the candidates are reviewed and confirmed by another body. So, there's this separation
Yeah.
of responsibilities. You would call it separation of powers, I guess.
Yeah.
The IAB is responsible for confirming ISG candidates. The ISOC Board of Trustees confirms candidates for the IAB, and the ISG confirms the candidates for the IETF Trust and IETF LLC positions.
Okay.
That,
That's a lot of validation.
yeah. So the IAB is responsible for confirming the ISG candidates. The ISOC Board of Trustees, candidates for the IAB.
Mm-hmm.
It's circular. The only one that doesn't confirm any candidates is the IETF Trust and IETF LLC. So IB does ISG,
Okay.
ISOC board does IEB,
Okay.
and the ISG does IETF Trust and IETF LLC.
Who checks the board?
Come again?
Who checks the board?
Come again?
Checks the board.
The board of trustee of ISOC.
Oh, I saw.
It's an organization in itself. The board of trustees. I mean, that's another good question. Where how is the board of trustees in ISOC
Validated.
validated and created? Yeah. Who? What's the process to become a member of ISOC board of trustees? And in fact, ISOC, not SOC. Who are the current board of trustees? I think I know someone there. Brian, Ted Harry, Russ, Maureen, Victor, Barry Leva. He's a cool guy. Charles Mock, I know him too. Andrew Sullivan, okay. I didn't know he was in the board of trustees. Well, I know he's a CEO, but I didn't know that automatically made him part of the board of trustees. Caleb, who is also part of NPOC in ICANN.
Mm.
Okay, so they get to decide on the AAB. They get to confirm the candidates for the AAB.
Mm.
This um, deserves another life cycle and a bit more of a. We're gonna have to come up with proper um, drawing tools and mapping tools. That's gonna happen at some point. By the way, anyone who's listening to this podcast, if you are interested on giving us a hand with that, by all means, just reach out to us. Okay. Yeah, I know three people here in the trustees. Four, basically. I also know Andrew. Know that I know that I'm sure that he remembers me, but yeah, met the guy. Okay. All right. What else? Let's have a look at the liaisons.
Okay.
And the idea. Okay, so we will give you those last 15 minutes, Mariam.
Mm.
And the idea would be next week to do the following episode exclusively on IETF 120.
Oh, okay.
120. Okay. Because the week after is when it starts, so we can have a look at each of one of
Mm.
the topics and the side events and so forth.
Wait, is this the last thing we're gonna be looking at? License?
Yes, I believe you wanted to finish in at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, 5.
Am I not nice that I pay attention to your request? Um, you're welcome. The IETF has a number of liaisons relationship with other SDOs, correct? So who are they and who they are liaising with?
I saw, obviously. I think.
Here we are. Okay, so there's a
Okay.
lot of them.
Okay. Oh,
Um,
wait, I saw it's not an SDO.
no, it isn't.
Okay.
It's an NGO basically.
Yeah.
It's the international NGO.
3GPP,
Okay, so
Cable Labs.
Broadband Forum, Cable Labs. Okay, I saw
Mm.
was SC2, GTC1, SC2. Okay, I need to know what the hell is this. I'm not familiar with ISO at all. Coded characters, GTC1. Japanese industrial. No. What is the difference between all of these here? That's what I'm wondering. Why would they have a specific liaison for? But then again, why would they have a specific liaison for one specific study group on ITU? That's interesting. So liaison must be defined ad hoc. There has to be someone that says, I believe we need to be in contact with this particular SDO, with this particular working group or an SDO, and then work it out from there. Because look at that, W3C is quite extensive, and they only have one single liaison. But then with ITU, they will have a specific one for SG15, and then for ISO, they got these 6 of them.
Mm.
So what would be SC6? Standardization encompasses protocols and services. So this must be the way that ISO structures their areas. The SC must be the code, just as SG for ITUs. Let me see. How does this go? Probably Wikipedia will help a bit more here.
So liaisons, their liaisons are external people.
No, they're people from the IETF.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Warren.
These are people from IETF liaising with ISO, with IEEE,
Correct.
ITUT. Okay.
And my guess is that there is, if there is any specific information, is also reflected through the that corresponding RFC. And so, for instance, with 3GPP, which standardizes telecommunications, uh, okay.
So if there's anything in IETF right now that I find interesting, it's actually in the one of the IRTF groups.
Mhm.
It's called the DINRG, Decentralized Internet Research Group.
Yeah.
So they have this contender for new internet architecture that is not depending on IP address and telephone number.
Okay. What is it based on?
It's based on names. So it's called the Name Data Network, or NDN.
Okay.
I have no idea how it works, but that's basically where IRTF is basically where this technology is being discussed and developed.
Do you want to have a look at IRTF since we haven't looked into it
I
at all?
I'm already in IRTF.
Okay.
It's the same. They use the same data tracker. There's no like specific data tracker for
Yep.
IRTF, so we
But do
can.
you want to explain what IRTF is for?
It's a sister track with IETF, but the focus is just different. It's more theoretical and conceptual,
Mm-hmm.
whereas IETF is where the actual implementation and engineering takes place. So because the NDN is still experimental, which is why they sit under the research group instead.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not exactly building the protocol for NDN yet. They're just still conceptualizing and also making it into an abstract. So the idea is that the first communications network of in the history of modern mankind is the telephone.
Mm.
It's specific to just one number at any given time. You have to
Mm-hmm.
route manually at the beginning,
Yeah.
right?
Switchboard. Yep.
And then you have something that like totally changes the identifier from telephone numbers to IP addresses.
Mm-hmm.
And so
That was the fight between the Bell people and so the
the,
telecom the telephone people and the packet people.
yeah, that was
Mm.
so something that would even want to stand as a contender that replaces that would first have to satisfy the requirement to change the identifier. So from you cannot have something that you say, "Oh, I'm going to replace the current IP or TCP IP,"
Mm-hmm.
without saying without satisfying a few conditions. And one of
Mm-hmm.
the conditions is that it has to be dramatically different form of identifying packets or identifying data.
And that's been proposed in.
And yeah, in name data network.
Okay, so prior to that, the IETF it's subdivided in a number of research groups.
Yeah.
So the IETF is subdivided in areas, and each one of those areas subdivided in working groups.
Mm,
The IRTF is directly subdivided into research groups. We
mm.
can have a look at some of them. Um,
Yep.
so again, welcome to the universe of acronyms. And the one that you are mentioning is
DNRG.
DINRG, right?
Yeah.
The decentralization of the Internet Research Group. Um, there's another group that I'm always very interested is Raspergy,
Raspberry. Yeah.
Research and Analysis of Standard Setting Processes Research Group. I'm always interested on what they issue. And let's have a look at what you were mentioning. Is there going to be a presentation in IDF 20 about that?
I
Do
don't
you
think
know?
so. I don't think so. No.
What are they doing?
At
Control F.
120 we need no.
Let me see if I can filter by. Um, Eh, IETF. This. I still keep trying to use my finger on my screen. Damn. They only have one meeting, and so far there isn't materials yet. So the agenda is not even published.
No, not yet.
Okay. Now, do they have anything over here? No, they don't. They must have a page somewhere in the data tracker. I should be able to find them. I don't want the drafts.
So the idea is to change from identifying your IP address to identifying your content. So they have this term called the content object, which means a unit of the content data, which becomes an alias to the data packet.
Can you share your screen?
Oh, yeah, I could actually. Oh. Share screen.
Let me stop sharing mine. There you go.
Data tracker. Cancel. Brief tab. I can't find the tab that I'm supposed to share. Podcast notch. No. Okay. Select a tab. Okay. Research. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Oh, not sharing. Ah, whoa.
Right. So
How do I
speaking
stop
of ISOC, GTC stands for Joint Technical
How do
Committee,
I stop this? Stop sharing.
and SC stands for
Okay.
Subcommittee. Right. So that's how they subdivide themselves. All right. Okay.
Network coding. I reshare.
Yep. Still cannot see here or anything here.
Am I using Brave? Yeah, I am using Brave. I'm trying to share. Hold on. Can I share this screen? I got to present, right? Share screen.
Yep.
I can't find this tab to
You can
share.
share the whole screen.
Okay, when I share the entire screen. Ah. Aha.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow.
What's your zoom level?
Oh,
Should be 150.
is it?
If you go to the settings on your browser on the hamburger menu, yeah, one. No. Close that. On the hamburger menu, yeah, there. Look at the
Zoom. Yeah, it is
yes,
150.
150. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Still trying to get
Is that a
used to it.
draft?
No, this is an RFC.
Is it?
Yeah, RFC 99273. Network coding for CCN, content centric networking or name data networking,
When was this
which
published?
is a contender for the current IP architecture.
When was it
Uh,
published? What's the
August
date?
2022.
Okay.
Yeah, authors are
So, so
yeah.
so that's Japan. In ICT, that's Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And Huawei. And ICT is a member, associate member in APT, Asia
Ah,
Pacific Telecommunication
okay.
Community,
Yeah.
if my memory serves.
So there's another research group that this is a part of. Coding for Efficient Network Communications,
Mm-hmm.
Information Centric Networking Research Group, ICNRG. Okay. Yeah.
So I have initial concerns that
So, yeah.
that it's hard for me to articulate at the moment because we still haven't discussed about um, the status of certain things in ITU, and
Mm-hmm.
we can't discuss until we get there because it's a lot to explain.
You want to
But
look at the sentence? This
yeah,
is like a
sure.
summary of what
Novel
NPN
communication
is.
paradigm that advocates for the retrieval of data based on their names.
Yeah.
This paradigm pushes content awareness into the network layer. That's my concern. It is expected to enable consumers to obtain the content they desire in a straightforward and efficient manner for the heterogeneous networks they might be connected to. Okay, so if I am understanding this correctly, this is one of the things that Protocol Watch wants to keep an eye on.
Mm-hmm.
The structure of communication between two computers follows well thought of um, step of layers. And one of the features of those layers is that each of one of them does not know what the others are doing.
Okay. Yeah.
So, given a layer X,
Mm-hmm.
they receive information from X plus 1, and they will send information down to X minus 1. So, the one above, they will get information from the one above, and they will send information from the one below. But they will not know how the one above and below are functioning, what they're doing, and how.
Okay.
And all that it will be is commanded from the one above. Please get me this information, which has been encrypted or not encrypted, depends on the protocol. Typically, all nowadays they're all encrypted, but
Mm.
it may happen not to be.
Yeah.
And send it to this particular destination, or send it down below after you process it. Do whatever you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what that basically means is that, let's say, the IP layer or even the TCP layer have no idea what the application is trying to do. So whatever the user is doing at the application layer, at layer 7, the rest of the layers have no idea. And you
Mm-hmm.
want to keep it that way because that allows you to keep privacy in how the communication layers interact.
Okay.
What this seems to be implying, as other proposals have implied as well, is that you're required to collapse all of those layers to be able to, in the name of efficiency.
Right.
And that does concern me, because one of the main elements is that you don't know what you're exchanging between people.
Mm.
That's basic privacy.
Okay.
So if you're able to unless they have come up with a way to use some kind of ZKP whatever that works on identifiers based on the content that is generated independently of the content, whatever.
Okay.
I'm not
Okay.
saying it's impossible because I don't know the technology enough. It
Mm.
does raise concerns immediately.
Mm. Yeah. So yeah, that's the research. Just flagging it since this
Mhm.
is protocol watch.
Yeah, and I don't know how they could avoid, for instance, getting rid of IPs, because IPs are just
Yeah.
basically the identifiers for the machines themselves, not
Yeah. Yeah.
not the
It's
information.
not to replace. It's just to evolve it. Just like we still use telephone numbers.
Hmm.
Yeah. it's not exactly to replace the network. It's to evolve the network into something else.
So it would be some sort of replacement of URLs
I have no
in the
idea.
way to identify resources.
I'm not sure.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And it is fascinating. That's why I'm following it.
Hmm.
Yep, that's all for me today.
Okay. So since I was before doubting myself about
Mm.
let me just reshare my screen again.
Okay, I can stop this.
Yep. Entire screen, and I want this one. Share.
You look 20 years younger with the cap.
Do I?
Yeah,
Don't know if that's
I should try that as well.
good or bad. So I was mentioning before that when looking at the liaisons, I was surprised about the nomenclature between the different ISO IEC liaisons. So what I come up here through Wikipedia is that GTC means Joint Technical Committee.
Mm,
So there has to be a number of them. So this is very likely like the study groups in ITU,
mm.
how they subdivide each of one of the areas, and I can imagine that there's going to be um, a number of joint technical um, GTC, blah 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 blah. Okay, JPEG, blah blah blah. Okay, and their subdivision are subcommittees, SCs. So SC2, SC6 will also be the corresponding. So there has to be somewhere a list. And for the next time, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to get Team GPT ready
Right.
so that we can throw these kind of questions and just give me all the GTCs and all the corresponding SCs so we can
So
have a
then
look
what does the
at the list. Huh?
other AI
FRI?
does? For I, yeah.
Yeah, FRI is it's in the making. It's I'm working on it. So we've been working on the contents for this podcast for quite some time. We may have been improvising a lot during this episode, and we will still be improvising a lot in the coming episodes because none of us are professional podcasters. That does not mean that we haven't been working on how this should be play out and how we could optimize for the research feature of the podcast. So we've been looking into a number of tools, and we've been preparing them. And one of the tools we'll be using is F4I, which is essentially an AI, an LLM consolidator for research papers and pretty much any document that you would want to analyze, and you can our you can basically query those documents. And our idea was to be able to extract knowledge from a whole set of documents that otherwise would take us too long to investigate one by one. And we already started creating, corresponding structures of information and so forth. And we are populating those and training the corresponding bots to be able to go through them.
Yep.
And we eventually will use them as a regular tool, as well as the mapping that I was mentioning, and some of the stuff that we're having in mind. So again, it looks as if this is very improvised, and it is in the sense of the stream itself. There is, however, a lot of work that is being done on the backstage to make sure that the episodes finally reach to the point of maturity and expertise that we are aiming at. All right, so hopefully you had some you learned something with this podcast. We promise we're going to be um, perfecting our style and the way we do the research in the upcoming ones. If everything goes well, we'll have a follow-up episode for IETF focus on IETF 120 next week, pretty much at the same time. We're still also working out what's the best time to do the podcast, because we want to reach not only the Asia Pacific region, which, by the way, I failed to mention that we are broadcasting from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And we would also want to be able to reach Africa and Europe, and that makes us have to stream a little bit late in the afternoon of Sunday, and that may not be the best of options. We'll see if maybe weekdays are best. We're going to be figuring out and trying a number of options. Um, if you have any doubts, reach out. We also will provide you with a way to send us feedback and proposals for SDOs or topics that you would want us to research, and we will also make it so that you can do your own research asynchronously, aside from the podcast, and also upload your findings to the mapping system that we are putting together. We'll give more details as we get those things ongoing. All right, that'll be all for all. Anything else you would like to add, Mariam?
No, thank you for listening.
Thank you indeed. Tristan? We're good. All right, so
See you next time.
see you next time, guys. Thanks.
How do I change the brightness level?
Yep.
Okay. Mhm.